Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Next Level Women podcast. I am thrilled because I have a special guest here today. Her name is Kayla Caldwell, and she's going to teach us amazing things about business strategy as well as paying ourselves first. Welcome to the show, Kayla.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So, why don't you start by introducing yourself and telling us what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I am the owner of the Peace Strategy. I am a profit first professional. And for the last 5 years, we've been doing bookkeeping for small businesses through QuickBooks Online. And it all started because we were a mom first and we wanted to build our businesses around it. But ultimately, we found while working with hundreds of business owners that bookkeeping just wasn't enough. And so we started to incorporate Profit First, which is a behavioral cash management system to help business owners start paying themselves one and start paying themselves first is that extra big thing and starting to build their business around what matters most as well.
Wow, that's so profound. And I want us to kind of dive into profit first and how that methodology works. But before we do, tell us about your entrepreneurship journey. How did you land on this niche?
So I actually started my business kind of by fluke. We've been in business for about 5.5 years now. So we actually started in the middle of the pandemic. And my husband, I had gotten pregnant unexpectedly, and my husband was like, "I want to spend time with our child, and so I'm going to start a business." And he's a personal trainer, and so when I went to do our taxes the following year after his first year of entrepreneurship, I asked, "How much did you spend in marketing? How much did you spend in this? How much did you spend in that?" Trying to do our taxes. And sure enough, just like every other entrepreneur during their first year of entrepreneurship, he had no idea. And at the time, I was pretty miserable in my corporate life. And I used to joke, like, how nice would it be to just be the bookkeeper? So, sure enough, that's exactly what I did. And I started my business with it. And as I started growing the business, I grew pretty quickly. I was able to replace my husband's income in about 3 months, even doing it part time with during nap time, basically. And through working with, hundreds of business owners, that I found that I just really loved working with brand new entrepreneurs. There's just so much struggle, so much mindset shift, so much growth that happens in those first few years that are just so much fun to help people navigate. And I really love working with women because I love helping them understand that you can put your family first and still grow a business and still have that separate identity. And as we grow, we can absolutely make sure that we're taking care of our families first. And so I've really started to help, online service providers and creatives too. And I love watching their brains work. And because I also know that money can just be so overwhelming, and that creative mind trying to wrap their head around money in such a different way, which is where Profit First really comes in. We just look at things just so much differently than your typical accountant or CPA.
I love that so much, and that's truly profound. And I can so relate to what you said about wanting to put family first. So at the
Yes.
time of today is the 2nd of April. Just this week on Monday, we had one of our networking calls, and we had about 24 women on the call. And two of the women had 4-month-old babies that they were nursing live on the call. And
Love
so
that.
I know. So like my mind is just going back to that experience I had just on Monday about how we as women, we get to juggle a lot of things because
Yes.
we are businesses, but we are nurturing lives. And
Hmm.
so it's incredible that you mentioned about how we can still prioritize our families and still
Hmm.
grow incredibly successful businesses. So thank you so much for
Yes.
that. I want you to tell us about your methodology, the
Hmm.
profit, the profit first methodology. I know you just said It is a completely different way to look at accounting and how business finance works. But
Mhm.
for most of my listeners, they have no idea what profit first is. So why
Yeah.
don't you enlighten us?
Absolutely. So, Profit First is a behavioral cash management system. And the whole idea stems from a few different things. One is Parkinson's Law. And the idea of the Parkinson's Law states for every resource that you have, you will use it all. And so it's created by Mike Michalowicz, and I'm licensed to help share it and grow this message. And the whole idea behind Parkinson's Law of using that whole resource is if we have $100 for a project, we're going to use all $100 of it. But if we have $1,000 for a project, we're going to use all $1,000 as well. Those two things might look very different, but knowing how much we have for that project per se, it will change how creative we are with the money. And so we learn how much money we truly have by splitting it out into percentages. And so it we have in the Profit First system, we have multiple bank accounts or smaller plates because when we have a smaller plate, we'll eat less, is kind of the idea behind that. And so everything funnels into that first income account. And so every dollar that you make goes into the income account. And then we split into profit, taxes, owner's compensation and operating expense accounts. So those are your five main accounts that you would have in your business. And as you get more advanced or more understanding in Profit First, there's a saying in Profit First community that's when in doubt, we'll add accounts. But I am a firm believer, and this is where my P strategy comes in and intertwines with the Profit First of baby steps. So we do this with the first five accounts first. And even then, if that feels overwhelming, we start with just two accounts, those that profit and the taxes, because that's where we need to save the money. And that's where we see the most success with the profit first system. And and I will say, majority of my clients that have come to me for Profit First, they're like, I read the book, it was amazing, I love the idea, but now I'm overwhelmed by it. So backtracking a little bit, everything funnels into that income account. And let's say you make, and we have these targeted allocated percentages. And in our world at the P strategy, we call them the perfect world scenario because we don't ever start there. And nor do we necessarily get there, especially because the percentages change four times between $0 and $1 million. And so we never really get to those targeted allocated percentages because they are perfect world scenarios. And by the time we get to those percentages, maybe we've hit that next milestone. And so now we're already shifting our percentages. But so those main percentages for 0 to $250,000 are going to be 5% profit, 15% taxes, 50% owner's compensation, and 35% operating expenses. So that whatever's left over is what we run the business on. And the idea behind the profit account is this is meant to be your celebratory account. So that 5% profit is what we're saving to be your quarterly or annual bonus that should only be used to celebrate your hard work. You are the number one employee in your business, so you should be paid for that. And then we save for 15% for taxes, and that's because when, Uncle Sam comes knocking, we have to pay him. And then owner's compensation, 50% of it should be going to you in this general idea. And the reason it's so high is because at this point, we tend to think your payroll is lower because you're running most of the business on your own at this point. It's still more of a job than it is a business. And then that final one is whatever's left over. That's what we're going to run the business on. So those operating expenses are going to be your software, your advertising, anything that helps you create what you provide for people is going to be what's left over. And that leads into the other big aspect of we're taught mentally for general accounting practice that sales less expenses equals your income. Whatever's left over is meant to be yours. But in Profit First, we actually switch that around. We actually say sales less profit equals expenses. And yes, mathematically that makes sense. However, when we as humans take what's ours first, we actually pay ourselves first, and then we get more creative with what's left over rather than the other way around. Because we all know that, especially as moms, we tend to provide for everyone else, and then we figure out how to fill our cup with what's left over. But in business, we really need to make sure that it's the other way around because we need to provide for ourselves because that's why we started our business in the first place, is to make sure that we are providing for us and what matters most.
Yes, you are so right. And I love all of this you've just explained. I love the profit first methodology. It's a book I have read myself too. So for the listeners listening right now, they're like, oh, this sounds really interesting. How do I start? What would you say to
Yeah.
them?
Yeah, so this absolutely is where we go back to those baby steps. Start with two accounts and save 1% for profit. And I'd say at least start with 2% for taxes. We want to generally get that as close to that 15%, depending on where you are in your tax strategy and how that's collected as much as possible for you. But definitely start with at least 2% for taxes too, because eventually, when we get closer to that 15%, it can also be used as a rainy day fund. Because if your tax preparer is doing their job, it shouldn't, independent, and again, depending on where you are, that 15% will generally be more than what you actually owe because you're running your business in the best way possible. But we want to see and reap those benefits right away. We want to see that 1% of every income that is made. So $1 for every $100 you make is put into a savings account. And I do recommend that both of these accounts are high yield savings accounts because as your money sits there, it should work for you and make more money. And so for both of these accounts, they are growing while they're sitting there. And then let's say you were to start today, April 2nd, the second day of Q2, quarter two. And so on July 1st, you're going to take that disbursement from your profit account and go celebrate yourself. So maybe you 1% was only $20. So that means you can go have a nice breakfast. Or a couple lattes. Or it grew to $100. Go get yourself a nice outfit, right? Like those are the kinds of things that what you and even you can even go a step further of like, okay, when I hit $100 in my profit account, I'm gonna go buy myself XYZ. But it's something that's not linked to the business and not linked to anybody else but you and your hard work. But maybe your profit account is growing so much that you can go take your family on vacation as well. So it can be used for all different kinds of things as long as it's for celebrating your hard work in the business. Now, there is a caveat to this. The only time it is not used for celebrating you is if you have debt in the business or personally. And so you can use this to be a debt destroyer account. However, let's say you saved $100. I would recommend still putting $50 towards debt and $50 towards celebrating your hard work. Or if you're like having big ick feelings around your debt, let's put 99 of it to your debt, and then $1 still goes to celebrating yourself. You can go to the dollar store. Maybe you need to go find a quarter as well because the dollar store is now $1.25. But you can celebrate yourself that way too. And that's totally okay. But that would be the only time I would say use your profit for something else. And Mike McCall is crazier, and he has his in a separate account with somebody that's not even linked to his business that has to sign off on his savings account for profit. And the only way he'll sign off is if he knows he's going to use it for celebrating his hard work in the business.
That's such an ingenious way to implement that. I love that so much. So, talk to us about how you help your clients with business strategy.
Yeah, so that really goes into more of the P strategy. So the P strategy is profit, energy, alignment, capacity, and ease. So that P is that profit. That's going to be like that true money piece, the profit first piece that we've really gone into. Energy is what fuels you and what drains you. And we really do a task audit with this. And so I challenge my clients to go 7 to 30 days of writing down literally every task that they do. And I ask them, does it fuel you? Does it drain you? Which then leads into our alignment piece. Is it aligned with your values and what you actually want to do in your business? Or is it just something you feel like you should be doing? And then we go into, same with we're continuing on that task audit, into the capacity piece. We have to make sure that we're putting what matters most first. So if you have a family, did you create your calendar around your family? Like, did you put your family calendar in first and then yours? Maybe you have, you're going through some mental health stuff. Maybe you need to make sure that your therapy is put on your calendar first and then your business. Maybe you have aging parents. Are there doctor's appointments on? There's all kinds of different things that happen in our different seasons of life that we know matter most. And if we put those on our calendar first and we make sure that our tasks are again aligned with those things, we can do that. We can have more capacity because we feel more fulfilled because we are putting what matters most first. And then that final part is ease. How do we create the systems around it, whether that be um, where AI is going those systems in place? Have we created SOPs so our team can take off maybe our draining tasks, but are things that are aligned with what we need to do for our clients? Can we get more hours to do what we are really, really good at? And finally, the most important system in that ease portion is our emotional system. Do we have that person that when we feel like burning it to the ground, we can call and have them talk us away from the matches, basically? But that I think, and so actually, when I do workshops, I actually talk about our emotional system and I have people envision their person that they go to when they're feeling down or feeling defeated, and they actually message them out of the blue just to say, hey, thank you so much for being my support system, because that system is one of the most important as we're growing businesses.
I love that framework, the peace framework. So I love how you put that together, especially around doing an audit about what
Yes.
drains and what fills us. And the reason I can so relate to this is because a number of my clients struggle with the things that drain them in their businesses. Many
Yes.
people say, oh my gosh, I wish someone can just take marketing off my table. I wish
Mhm.
this operational task or this admin task can be taken off my table. And many
Mhm.
of them are still solopreneurs. So the
Mhm.
most that we have will be like a virtual assistant. But I love how you
Mhm.
emphasize all of those aspects because I see them. I see them when they are doing things that energizes them. The way they show up is different. And I think as business owners, we need to structure our business in a way that we are focusing on those tasks that lights us up.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. Really, really resonates with.
Yes. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that one thing that we lose sight of sometimes as business owners is we got into business to do whatever it is because we're really good at it. Sometimes it's because what we needed it most in our lives as well. But like for me, I love sitting one-on-one or in a group call with clients that are just feeling defeated around their numbers and really helping them interpret what those numbers are doing and where their business is going and to really navigate that. And you said it too of we always struggle between sometimes it's marketing, sometimes it's sales, sometimes it's financial, and sometimes it's the team. Those are like the four aspects that sometimes we just have to focus on one. And that again goes back to that baby steps of it really is about baby steps. And so sometimes it's figuring out which one feels most. And so that's where when we talk about the peace framework and and the 90-day plans around it. We say pick one letter that feels most, and it sounds silly, but misaligned right now. Which one is struggling the most right now that you need to focus on first? And focus on that. Maybe it's only a day, maybe it's a week, maybe it's a whole quarter, and we can just take those baby steps from there to start to move that. But where I was going with that too is that fueling and draining us is that's where I need to be spending my money or my time so that my clients get the most out of me. And then also outsourcing that those draining tasks for me, like the everyday bookkeeping portion of it, while I can help with like the more complicated things and I can navigate the team and I can do quality control. It's better that my team themselves does those tasks so that I can focus on that high level strategy that lights me up so much because ultimately the business is going to thrive more because I'm there rather than in the everyday admin tasks that I have amazing bookkeepers for. And that's where we can absolutely have our clients do the same thing.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for explaining that so eloquently. So then, based on your experience, when you've implemented the profit first strategy for your clients, what do you think holds people back from being consistent? Like maybe their money mindset or some of those um, kind of sabotaging actions that gets people back to where they started again after doing all of these amazing work. So how do you help your clients to overcome all of those mindset blocks?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first part is profit first can be very overwhelming to just start. Like just starting is the hardest part. That's where they've read the book, they're so excited about it, or they've listened to a podcast like this, they're so excited about it, I want to go implement it, and they try to hit the ground running and it's just too much. And they try to go for those targeted allocated percentages, those perfect world scenarios right away. So those two things um, are big things. And so then, and the other aspect is setting up bank accounts can be such a drain. And so just going to the bank feels too overwhelming. So I'd say like the first baby step is setting up that bank account. And that's why I also say let's just start with one high yield savings account for your profit to just see how much you could really save. Because that is like that first when I see people first take their first quarterly profit distribution, it's like I made that much. It's like, okay, I can do this. So that's why I say start with that. But I also say start with that too, because you can actually open that bank account, that high yield savings account online. And so it's not about going to your bank. It's not about negotiating anything. It's just a matter of just going online, filling out a form, and getting a high yield savings account. So I'd say like that's like the first part. The second part is when you do have it all set up, they're robbing Peter to pay Paul, meaning they did do those perfect world scenario percentages right away, and they're trying to take 50% out of their business right away, and then they're robbing themselves to pay for their business expenses because they weren't paying themselves before. So they went from 0 to 50% and they just were too overwhelmed with the little amount of expenses. And as we grow our business, our expenses tend to grow. And so the next part that I say that we've missed there is doing an expense audit. And this is where we kind of utilize the expense audit similar to our task audit of, is it actually helping us provide the best service for our client? Is it actually helping our company grow? Or do I literally just want it and it seems nice and I bought it because it was at a discount and I think it's doing good? Are we just justifying that expense? And so, or do we really need it and can we get it at a cheaper amount? Meaning a lot of us tend to do the software month over month or month to month because it's a little bit less overwhelming for $40 a month versus 400 for the year. But that's still $80 savings at the end of the year if we were to pay for the year. So, is there a way that I can figure out how to pay for the annual amount too? So, that's where that expense audit really helps us with that next money jump. And this is also where I tell the other story that you read in the Profit First book of Mike was working with this leather curing company. And leather curing in general takes thousands of dollars to do leather curing. And so this leather curing company started their Profit First, and they had $100 left over to do their thousands of dollar process. And so they went to Home Depot with $100 in their pocket saying, okay, how do we cure this leather for only $100 that we've been so used to paying thousands of dollars for? And sure enough, they figured it out and they now have like a patent for this special thing. But this is where if we stop robbing Peter to pay Paul, meaning robbing ourselves to pay for our business, we can get more creative with those expenses that's left over so that we can take care of ourselves. And the other aspect of that too is it does help us be in our more creative minds to move our business forward. And if you are seeing a lot of leaks where I'm constantly having to, and I was saying earlier, when we get more complicated in the profit first world, we add accounts. So like when you start to have payroll, I say, let's have a payroll account so you know exactly what percentage of your income is going to payroll. If you're constantly robbing operating expenses or taxes or even your owner's comp to pay for payroll, we know where our leak is. We know what's going on. What is happening in payroll? Are we overstaffed? Any of that? Because ultimately, when we're a business owner, we do have to make sure that everybody gets paid, everybody has food on their table, and that can be very overwhelming. But it is, so there's two parts of that aspect of having to pull from one account and put into another. It shows us where we're not being creative, as well as where is the big leak that's happening in our business.
So good, so good. And I love the example you gave from the book about how this company was able to find ingenious ways to do the work that thousands of dollars was doing before then. And yeah, so you already gave us like amazing nuggets. And you said for people who want to get started, just go first, open the high yield savings account to get started, which is incredible. So then
Mhm.
for those people who are like, no, I need help, I need accountability, so I follow through, I need Kayla's help, where should I go next?
Yeah, so there's two things that I think would be amazing starts. One, you can just follow me on Instagram at the Peace Strategy. And if you DM me Peace, I'll send you the first chapter of my audiobook for free. So you have a general idea of what's going on with the Peace Strategy and how we got here. And we also have this amazing, affordable, especially for solopreneur membership, where we talk QuickBooks Online, we talk Profit First, and we talk the Peace Strategy. There's all kinds of resources in there for all of those things. And we have a bi-monthly group call where you come and you bring those calls to us. And if you're just like, I have so many ways that we can work one-on-one as well. If you're just overwhelmed by all of that, just send me a message on Instagram. I love chatting with everyone and really helping them navigate what is next for them.
Amazing. So, listeners, I'm going to grab all of those links. It will be in the show notes if you are listening on the podcast. And if you're watching us on YouTube, it will be in the description. Thank you so much, Kayla. I'm going to allow you to have the last word. What parting words do you have for our listeners today?
I think as we're growing our business, we grow ourselves. And I think it's absolutely okay to have our own identity, to put our profit first, and to ultimately create peaceful lives.
Wow. Wow. So good. So good. Thank you so much, Kayla. It's been a joy having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome.